Hello folks, welcome to another batch of Hobby Nightmares. If you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below. Help us try to reach our 20,000 subscriber target. We are nearly there, so if you really want to make a difference to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. Down you go, hit the subscribe button, go ahead, go and do it, you know you want to. If you're getting any models pretty soon, make sure you head over to Composite Games and use the promo code Northern Exile down below to get yourself 5% off your order at checkout when you choose to get some new models. Not only are you getting new models, but you're helping me out too, which is rather lovely. So, let's move on, shall we, to Tim, who has our first Hobby Nightmare of the day. And he says, "Hello, Mr. North. There are some who call me Tim. I've been listening for a bit and decided to finally write one of my own horror stories from when I first started in the hobby. I have changed the names of the store owner and of my friend. This was the main part of the story. Other than that, I have left others' names out of the story, as most don't play a large part on it anyway. I will try and keep this short, but not skip over much details, as this all happened many years ago, and all took place over a few years' time." Okay. Well, for such a short-ish Hobby Nightmare, it goes on a long time. Okay, fair enough. "I am not a writer by a long shot, so I will apologise in advance to your teacher's brain. Feel free to take a tea break at any time during the story, thank you very much. A little background on me. I live in a small Texas town, and I have always been a nerd, but tried to keep it to a minimum throughout my school years. It was not until I was out of school that I started dipping my toes into Magic the Gathering by the request of my roommate at the time. After inviting a few of our friends over, we had developed a good group to play with. Over time though, our group just became the same people with the same decks, just slightly tweaked each time we got together to beat the hot deck of the moment in the group, and truly lacked the diversity of a large consistent play group. Enter Gary, the person that would show me not to be careful what you wish for. Gary had opened the first gaming store in our area in years. Our group was overjoyed to have a place to play and expand our decks. We quickly learned that the Magic group that had followed Gary were extremely competitive and found us unworthy of their time. Most just refused to play us." Okay, this is what I mean by I don't want 40k to go down this road. You have to be very, very, very careful, because the tournament scene and the competitive scene is growing exponentially in 40k. I don't want it getting to this point. Do you know what I mean? When people go, "Oh, I'm not playing you, you're new." You know, no, I don't want that. You know, horrible. "One time a guy picked up his deck halfway through a game, declaring himself the winner before getting up from the table and walking away. When he did this, he said something along the lines of, 'The card I just pulled would have won the game, and I don't wish to just drag this out.' We quickly found ourselves playing with our old group, but slowly losing players to the toxic players during the tournaments of Gary's shop that kinda just drove most of us away. After a while, only a few of our group remained. I found myself doing well and winning from time to time during these tournaments that took place in the store. Not the best, just enough to win packs here and there. Unfortunately, this got the attention of Gary and his lackeys. Gary approached the table one of my friends and myself had been playing at, and without saying a word, swiped my deck from the table and began looking through it, commenting that the deck was not that good and that I had just been very lucky with a shit deck. At this point, I was holding everything in as my blood was boiling. I don't know if it's mostly me, but I do not like my stuff being touched without permission." Well, I think that goes without saying everywhere in life, do you know what I mean? But especially in 40k and other places where you're quite proud of the stuff that you've got yourself, you know, to show to your friends. When somebody just picks it up and starts rifling through it and going, "Yeah, that's alright, yeah, that's alright, nah, I don't like that one." You're like, you know, it isn't a phenomenon that happens. And it's normally the toxic weirdos who have not got any boundaries because they're the head of their own little coven of weirdos. Like this guy here, like this Gary guy, right? It's normally those. Anyway, Gary set the deck back down and made a statement that his mono-colour deck could wipe my deck in just a few turns. One of my friends that I'd been playing with stepped in and told him to go get his deck and play me then. I tried my best to put on a smile and agreed that it worked well for what it was. He grabbed his deck and sat across from me saying, "We'll see, no offence." I'm a very easygoing gamer. Win or lose, I'm here to have fun and get better. This match though, this one I felt like I had to win. Dude, please. Everybody in the fucking comment section. There'll be a lot of people who are normally quite cynical about these things, but a lot of Magic the Gathering players will know these guys exist. Everybody's rooting for you here. Please don't tell me you lose. Okay? Okay, please. The first match... Oh, the first match, you play him a few times, okay. The first match was a good back and forth, but I eventually lost. The second game, though, I found my stride and won by a landslide. Gary quickly ran behind his counter, took about 10 minutes changing cards before returning. The last match's deck felt pretty perfectly geared to combat the very specific gears of my deck. Slightly disappointed and upset, I began packing my things away. Good lad! Good lad! Yeah, exactly. You want to be a fucking man-child, mate? You beat me once with a deck, then I beat you. You then go and change the rules by changing your deck again? Go fuck yourself. Gary grabbed my deck again before I could get it packed away and went behind the counter. He began pulling cards from sleeves and putting different cards in his sleeve. What? I ran up the counter and asked for my deck back, trying not to lose my cool on the owner of the only game shop around. Gary told me to relax. He was fixing my deck, and he just passed the deck to me. He said it was only about $40 to have the tournament-worthy deck. I quickly declined. As he continued to insist, I purchased the cards. I pulled the cards out of the sleeves and back into my deck box and went outside. And luckily, my friend had grabbed my cards that he said Gary had placed in his singles box behind the counter. After that, I refused to go back to the shop to play Magic. Yeah, dude. Guys like this are the death of the hobby. Nearly any hobby you're in. Roughly a year later, I met one of my best friends. We will call him Rob. Rob had told me a small, very, very condensed version of the grim-dark future of 40k. I was instantly hooked. I immediately began researching everything I could, picked out the army I would like to play, and settled on the Tau as I was a huge Gundam fan. I saved up the money and hopped in my friend's car and drove to the Gary shop. Yes, I know, I shouldn't have even entertained the idea, but my dumbass figured it had been over a year and I continued to stand strong, on never playing Magic there again. I was going to play 40k. When I walked in, I should have known it would be something else with Gary, but I was excited to get my hands on some models and paints. I was ready to dive into the deep end. Gary must have trained at a Games Workshop, because as soon as I came in and said I wanted to play Tau, he began pushing the starter box. After a back and forth, my friend agreed to split the starter. I took the Space Marines, and my friend took the Chaos. I think this was Dark Angels versus World Eaters. Okay, yeah, that'll be Dark Vengeance. Dark Vengeance, yeah? So for those of you who have lost here, Gary is the owner of the store. This is why, I know a lot of you are saying, you know, oh my god, you've got to, you know, you can't let this guy do what he's doing to your cards. No, he's the owner of the store and he's got nowhere else to go. Okay? This Gary is the worst kind of person. He pushes his shit on everybody else. He abuses the small amount of power that he's got in this universe in his own little hobby store to the nth degree, you know, to force things on people. It's not nice. Not nice at all. After painting all of my Marines as salamanders and playing a few games, Rob and I were approached by Gary asking about our armies. When I explained that I had really started to enjoy playing salamanders, Gary huffed and said that those are all Dark Angels and he would let it go this time, but he did not like proxy models and will not allow us to play anymore if we continued. This guy's a douchebag. This guy's a douchebag. You're selling Dark Vengeance, dude. I know it's a shit starter box set because it's got Dark Angels in it, but you can play them however the fuck you want. Alright? As long as it's Citadel models, you can play them how you like. Something about losing his commission with Games Workshop if they found out. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. It's not true. It's not true. Games Workshop will allow you to play with any Games Workshop model in the store. It's fine. If they allow games, you can play with it. It's fine. Okay? Forge World is another matter entirely. But if you buy a Dark Vengeance box set, or if you, and you want to paint your Dark Angels in that box set as Salamanders or as fucking Rainbow Marines, it doesn't matter. You can play with them in store. That is not a thing at Games Workshop. Categorically not a thing. Alright, they're not that bad. Side note, there were no tournaments, just free play at the store. I was young and dumb, and so I believed him that I wouldn't, and I didn't want to hurt the shop if I continued to play the Dark Angel Marines as Salamanders. I finally decided I would sell off all my Marines and start my Tau army. After a few weeks of saving money and selling off my Marines, mostly to Gary, I had enough to start a new army. This Gary dude, man. Honest to God. When I finally went in to buy everything, Gary said to me that Tau was a shit army with cheap gimmicks. Plus, he did not like the people that played Tau, so he refused to carry Tau. Didn't he just try to sell you the starter box set the other day with Tau on it? This was extremely disheartening, but I had just again saved enough to get a good chunk of an army, and not wanting to be that guy, I decided to go for Necrons. No! Leave the store! Leave the store! This is another one of those fucking hobby nightmares, man. People just get shit on and ask for more. Leave the store. Go onto the internet and buy your army there. I don't give a fuck what you say. I like this army. I'm collecting it. Suck my big hobby balls. Alright? That's what you can do for me. You don't like Tau. Here's one ball here. Put it in that cheek there. Here's that ball there. Put it in that cheek there. And suck away, my friend. That's what you're getting from me. Alright? Because I like Tau. I'm collecting Tau. What a fucking douchebag this guy is. Please tell me he gets his comeuppance. It's ridiculous. You decided to go for Necrons, your next choice. Fucking hell. And you're giving him money as well? You're buying it at his store? I picked up enough models to play, but when I went back to pick up the codex, Gary handed me the 6th edition codex. Luckily, I had researched enough to know that 7th was out by this time. I brought this up, and he just said that he was used to selling the 6th edition codex and went in the back and got me the 7th. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. This guy's a piece of shit, and he's a crook as well. We played at the shop a few more times, but decided to stop going after a few of our minis turned up missing. Yeah, surprise, surprise. A new shop in the town over eventually opened up, and Gary's shop was closed shortly after this. Now, Gary had made my first couple of years in the hobby tough. He had brought a lot of my current hobby friend group together, and with similar, if not worse, experiences. Unfortunately, Rob would end up passing away in an accident. Oh, I'm sorry about to hear that, man. That's horrible. That's horrible. After that, I lost my drive to play, and in a fit, sold all my Warhammer stuff and stopped playing. I would pick up other games to keep painting, but not really playing. At the launch of 10th edition, I reconnected with my love of the hobby, finally getting my Tau army. Good lad. I've been going to a new game shop with a new group that was just as interested in seeing everyone's new models as they are playing thematic lists for the fun of the game. Gary has since opened up another shop, and the stories continue the more people I meet. This will be his 3rd store that I know of. Thank you for listening and reading our stories. It has made a huge difference to hear your advice and other stories. Cheers. Okay, yes. Yeah, this just seems like a blanket abuse of power. It is somebody getting off on the one bit of power they have in this universe, right? That's what he's doing. Thank God you're out of there. Thank your lucky stars. And never let anybody tell you what you should enjoy. Alright? This is one of the worst kind of nerds. You know? How dare you? You're not enjoying what I'm enjoying in you know, in the way that I want you to enjoy it, so you can't have it. You know, fuck that. Fuck that. Next is Faust. Faust, my friend, I can't see any of your... I don't know where your... oh, here they are. Found them. Never mind. Oh, nice. Imperial Knights. Right. Next one's from Faust. Let's have a little look-see, shall we? So Faust says, I'm writing to tell you the tale of the time I broke one of my golden rules whilst playing 40k. Never let somebody else handle your miniatures. Okay, we're developing a theme for this Wednesday, okay. The nightmare happened towards the beginning of 10th edition when I was participating in a league at my local game store. I was playing my Imperial Knight army, which I had recently completed painting in a Germanic Knight / Imperial Fists colour scheme. The league was a great motivator for me to work on my pile of shame, as the deadline to get things painted really helped me stay motivated to keep painting on a regular basis. Having a fully painted knight army was a hobby bucket list item of mine, and I spent some months of the hobby time on the big knights getting them to the standard that I wanted. The photos are attached. Okay. Let's have a little look here at some of your models. On there. Boom. That is a good looking Imperial Knight. Let's have a little look here. It's more the base that I'm in love with. What's the base? The icy base. Look at that. What a gorgeous base that is. Absolutely brilliant. Love it. Love the heat wash on the weapons as well. Brilliant stuff. Absolutely cool. It started as a good day, and I was riding high, as I had just won my last league game and cemented first place. After my match, I placed my knights back into their storage crate with a magnetised bottom to prevent them from sliding around during transport. Not to be turned upside down, of course. Then, I asked the store owner if I could place the crate behind the counter for safekeeping whilst I played in the Magic the Gathering Commander event that was happening at the store the same day. Don't worry, I'm a working professional who showers daily. Not like Gary then. After the event was over, and I was going to head home for the day, the store owner, Dave, was behind the counter checking out some customers. What he means by that is he's doing their orders for them. He's not checking them out like, very nice. Right? No, he's not doing that. That's when I broke my rule and asked him to hand me my army that was stored behind the counter. In a jerking motion, he grabbed my box one-handed and turned it perpendicular to the floor. My heart sank and my rage rose as I heard the sound of the top-heavy models smashing into each other and pieces breaking off. I slowly opened the lid to reveal the utter carnage inside. Guns, shoulder pads, heads and armor plates were all scattered around the bottom of the box. To make things worse, Dave picked up one of the guns, examined it and said, "Huh, this isn't even painted in that much of a detail anyway." This is typical of our usual banter, completely misreading the severity of the situation. Thankfully, I held all of the intrusive thoughts that were racing through my mind in, and settled for a piercing stare. I didn't say a word afterwards, and I packed up and left in silence. I don't blame you, mate. I don't blame you. This story does have a happy ending, though. With some glue and some slight touch-ups, you wouldn't even realise how many pieces the knights had been in. It took me a few months for me to get back to the shop, as it still stung that months of work were undone in an instant by this guy's behaviour. To be fair, Dave did not do it intentionally, and he himself was not a wargaming hobbyist. He primarily dealt with cardboard hobbies like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon, so he did not realise how much work had gone into my army. He also thought magnetisation meant that you could just turn the models upside down and they would stick, but these were knights, not Primaris Marines. However, I don't really think any level of magnetism would have held against the force in which he picked up the box. Thankfully, one of my Chad friends in the hobby was able to explain why it was such a big deal to Dave during the time on which I stepped away, and Dave has since apologised, and we are on good terms again. I have taken over running the league in the shop, and will be proudly representing some of the Sons of Titan this season. Good lads! Man of culture. Thanks for all you do and the great entertainment. Cheers. No problem, man. Absolutely no problem. A lovely looking knight model there. Very, very nice. Very nice indeed. Tada says, "Greetings, North. I come forth to tell you a story. So make sure you have a fresh brew in hand and are comfortably seated." I am, thank you. Disclaimer. This is the first time I'm attempting to reflectively write, so I apologise for my rambling, writing mistakes, or grammar in advance. This happened to me in my younger teenage years, and is a fine example that when it comes to karma, it's amazing how things can come full circle. I know you like a proper chunk of hobby in these tales you read, and I'm happy to announce that a good chunk of my tale is rooted in little plastic men. When I was a kid, I was introduced to Warhammer by my old man, who had a stall at a market in the city I live in Scotland, buying and selling second-hand minis. From then on, I was absolutely hooked. This was around the time that Warhammer 40k was in its 4th edition, and whilst I had amassed a respectable army of power-armoured smurfs, I rarely, if ever, had any real fun. But then I found it, right there on the shelf of my local hobby shop. The Lord of the Rings, a strategy battle game. Okay. Okie dokie. Take a quick sip of tea. As a lifelong Tolkien fan, thanks Dad, this was the miniature war game I had been searching for, and very quickly I amassed a very sizable horde of Galadrim elves, and had a complete blast. I played weekly. Within that very same hobby shop, I made friends with a sizable community of players who, like me, were massive fans of Tolkien's work. Though as is evident in the stories you tell so often, when everything seems great, something sometimes has to give. Enter a player I will name only as Chris. Chris was in every way, shape and form a fucking asshole. Not a Dave though, I know, shocking. Alright, before I carry on the story, I know I read a lot about, you know, bad hobby nightmares, and some good ones too. What I like to think is that this channel helps people coming into the hobby, or who are already in the hobby, deal with folks who are a bit more challenging, because, as you've just said there, Takeda, it is only a matter of time when you're in the hobby space before that guy shows up and starts to ruin things for you. If you've read or listened to a lot of these hobby nightmares, you are more well equipped to deal with that person, put them in a little fucking box and push them to the side and enjoy your hobby, right? That's kind of what these are here for. They're here for mental health, they're here to have a laugh, they're here to explore the hobby, and they're here to make sure that you know how to deal with bad situations when they arise, you know what I mean? Anyway, moving on. Chris only ever took joy in one thing: winning the game. Chris was the kind of person who would win with extreme prejudice and would wave his victory laughing in your face. With the usual clientele in hobby shops, I took Chris with a pinch of salt. Chris was in fact very good at the game. He knew how to build his goblin army list and how to utilise his forces to the best of their ability, made sound tactical decisions, and if he wasn't such a premium grade arrogant wanker, he would have been a very good teacher to the young players that frequented the club we played at. The only time where Chris became even slightly more unbearable than his usual power gaming victory hungry self was when the hobby store announced that they would be having several tournaments running over the weekends. Of course, one of these was for the Lord of the Rings. Unlike Chris, I had played in tournaments before and had gotten my list down to an art and went into the tournament cool, calm and collected. Chris went in as his old, arrogant and overconfident self as predicted. The tournament itself was very popular and had a lot of players that had arrived to play. This led to the tournament being randomly drawn and each player requiring a certain number of wins to progress into the next round of the tournament. From the maths, it was established that each player would play 5 games, requiring 3 wins to advance. At the start of the tournament, Chris was his usual cocky self, but very quickly, much to my amusement, found himself being humbled. By the end of the first day, I was sitting on a comfortable 4-0. I had a close call with some Knights of Dol Amroth, but managed to eke it out on points. Chris didn't do so well. He went 2-2 because, as it turns out, goblins don't like being shot at very much by massed archer fire, but go figure. T-shirt saves exist in Middle-earth too, I guess. Before heading home, the next weekend's games were posted for the next round of the tournament and the remaining games of the first round, and it turns out that Chris would be my last game of the first round. Chris noticed this and became the nicest guy I have ever met, asking me about my other hobbies and interests. When I was a teenager, other than the tabletop, there was only other one thing I loved, and that north was Halo. Turns out Chris was a pretty big fan of Halo himself, and asked if I wanted to play some games through the week before the next round. Granted, I wasn't thrilled by the idea, but I gave him my number and told him to text me his gamertag, no problem. Later, Chris texted me his tag, and I could not believe my fucking eyes. Let me take you back some weeks to provide that much needed context. I had a group of online friends I played Halo with, and this was the first time that Bungie graced us with the coveted Vidmaster achievements. The hardest challenge in Halo 3, and at the end of the road, the Holy Recon armor would be unlocked. In case you weren't aware, this was the only time this armor was made available to the player base. Okay. 7 achievements lay between me and that armor set, and nothing was going to stop me. Eventually, the only remaining achievement was annual. The conditions of this achievement in the game were simple. Complete the final mission on legendary difficulty with all 4 players on ghosts. The catch? Iron Skull on. For those who don't know, Iron Skull disables checkpoints and resets the entire mission if a single player dies. A very frustrating process. On one particular run, everything was going perfectly in the group I was attempting it with, until one fucker, who happened to be Scottish, intentionally died on the run up to the forward unto dawn. 1 fucking second more and we would have got it, and this shitlord could not contain his laughter at fucking us over and leaving the game. He quickly left the game whilst bragging that he already had the achievement, so didn't need it. Let's just say I would never forget the gamer tag of this particular wanker, so imagine my shock when Chris told me his gamer tag and it was the same one. Oh my god. Oh no. No idea how I never put it together from his voice, but the penny dropped real hard afterwards. I guess I had always assumed with the voice online that this dude was older than the goblin playing goblins at the hobby store. Needless to say, I made excuses not to add Chris on Xbox Live, as that would give the game away. I predicted what Chris was looking for, and sure enough, closer to tournament day, the foretold conversation occurred. Okay, he said, "Listen man, could you take a game loss against me so I can play in the next round?" It turned out that 3 wins was enough to secure your place in the next round, and so Chris was obviously asking me to throw a game so he could make it into the next round. Game time. I get real buddy-buddy with Chris. Assure him, oh no, I assure him I'm going to take the loss for him, and he could not be happier. We start deployment, and the entire time we are laughing and joking together like 2 of the best mates you could ever see. At the end of deployment, we roll for priority. I get it. I had deployed a lot of archers, both front and mounted. Long story short, I fucking annihilated him. I won't give you a play-by-play, but it turns out that Galadrim fuck goblins up in combat and cannot stand being shot. I even remember seeing a faint twinkle of a tear when his Balrog failed a fate roll on his last wound. After the game, I went outside for a smoke. Teenage smoking? I know, how could I? And Chris followed me outside. He went apeshit and called me every name under the sun he could think of and explained how he thought we were friends. The look of realization on his face when I quipped that I thought he was cool too until he cost me a Vidmaster achievement. Well, he wasn't laughing now. Chris awkwardly walked back into the hobby shop, grabbed his shit and left. I never saw much of Chris after that. A few sporadic appearances here and there. I went on to finish 3rd in that tournament, but boy, did I feel like a champion afterwards. I now play Warhammer 40k, and just like my teenage self, I have continued to the trend of pointy-eared plastic men, and from the 8th edition onwards, have happily been capturing shurikens at catapulting shurikens at Space Marines with my Space Elves. Thanks for reading, and I hope you get a chuckle. I have a few more serious stories about my hobby journey, which I will send access to you soon. Always start with the funny, though. Best wishes, Tada. Thank you very much, man. That was awesome. That was really entertaining. I love that. That was fantastic. Thank you. If you want to send me into Hobby Nightmares, make sure you send them to hobbynightmares@gmail.com. That is hobbynightmares@gmail.com. That's down in the description down below. I love you a long time. I will speak to you tomorrow, where we're going to be discussing why I fell out of love and walked away from the gaming side of 40k. Love you all. See you soon. Bye now.